Where do I start? So I guess a good place to start is the beginning. This being a little intro video and talk about how I started running, my progression in the last 3.5 years, from no running at all to a 2:36 marathon. We'll talk about my progression in those races, what I did to get to those places, and we'll talk about what's next and where I'm headed. All right, let's go into history a little bit. 2019, super fit, CrossFit, 10K PR was around 7:57 per mile. So fit, but not running fit. 2020 came around, COVID. We had our first kid. I started getting very, very lazy, sedentary for a couple years, really until 2022. Had my second kid in 2022, our second daughter. And I ended up 40 pounds overweight. I knew I needed to make a change, so I got motivated and signed up for the 2023 Chicago lottery, and I got in. Shit, I better run now. So I started running in about December of 2022. Tried 2023, I DNF'd, collided with a spectator. I didn't have sub 3 in me. I was about 1:30:45 through the half, so I just didn't have it. But Houston 24, quick turnaround, got my sub 3, 2:56. Eugene 24, bomb. Toronto in the fall of 24, 2:53, so 3-minute PR. Not really the jump I wanted. Kept having calf cramps. Boston 25 was 2:49. This was the big one. This was the breakthrough. I finally hit 90-mile weeks. I started seeing low 6-minute per mile in marathon pace work. I really thought, 2:45 was a goal there, but strong race, no calf cramping. Chicago 25, I really thought this was going to be the big one, and it did not go well. We'll discuss a little bit more about that later, but Bayshore 26, finally my race, 2:36, 6 months after a Chicago 2025 bomb. So let's kind of debrief a little bit and just briefly talk about a couple things I think are going to be the big question. How did I go from couch to a sub 3 in 14 months? Big answer there. I'm not totally sure. I hit high volume early, in the 50s within 8 months, 7 months of starting to run on a consistent basis, 40s and 50s. And when I ran the 2:56 for Houston, my peak was at a 68, 12 months, about a year after I started running. So I think that's probably the biggest explanation I have. I was not fit when I started running. I have no history of any high quality running other than what was included in CrossFit. I have been fit a lot of my life. So there is that. But I was 40 pounds overweight with no running history. Couldn't run a 5K in 9-minute pace. The second question is, what happened from 2:46 in Chicago to a 2:36 in Bayshore for that 9-minute, almost 10-minute jump when I had been getting consistent 4-minute jumps? And I think, it's simple. I think that I needed to work on my top end speed. I was an endurance monster, but my shorter distances just weren't there. I hired a new coach after Chicago, and his name's Rory Linkletter. Probably heard of him if you're watching this video. And he flat out told me, you want to run paces in the marathon that your shorter distance speed work does not lead up to. You can't run a 2:39 when your half marathon PR is a 1:19:38. That's just not going to cut it. So we dropped volume significantly and absolutely hammered speed work from November through to the end of February. And even for the Bayshore block, we kept mileage high. I still peaked 90, I peaked at 104, but it was consistent in the 90s and 100s throughout, except for, tune-up weeks. And that was the big thing. We kept speed work in. So Bayshore itself was, pretty great day. We thought that I was in 2:35 shape on a really good day. And through the half, I PR'd my half in the race and was really feeling good through about 16, 17. Started to feel, the paces get really hard around 18, 19, and 20. Started to get some calf twinges. And so, but was able to hold on with, about a minute and 30-second positive split, which, coming off a half PR in the first half is pretty positive. So I'm elated about the result. I'm stoked. And, I think Rory's super happy with the 9-minute PR in 6 months. And I think it just shows, what we were able to do in a short period of time, and just kind of that breakthrough barrier to get, 5:59 average, sub 6 average for the marathon, is just kind of leading us in a position of, hey, that's a good look as what's to come. Just dropped my 4-year-old off at camp. Hit the grocery store, focusing on food a lot this summer. Figured I'd take 2 seconds, talk about what's up for my post Bayshore plans this summer. Rory is going straight back to what paid our bills over the winter after Chicago, speed work. We're going to be hammering 2 speed sessions a week, plus a long run on Sundays. We're going to be watching food intake, hitting the gym, trying to tighten up all of these little things that are going to get me to that next level. A lot of low-hanging fruit still to grab. My 5K PR is 16:41, and my half PR is 1:17:40-ish. So, none of those make a whole lot of sense for a 2:36 runner, much less someone who's trying to go for 2:30. So, got to get those times down. Got to fix all these little things, and go into marathon project end of September, ready to rock. But I'm going to keep this going all summer. I'm going to try and be posting more details about what I'm eating, more details about what I'm doing in the gym, and a lot more details about my workout sessions once we get to kick-started next week. So shoot me follow along, hit subscribe, and yeah, let's see what we can do this summer, and let's see what we can get in Marathon Project.